Hey YouTube, jgreen302. We'll call this, I don't know, miscellaneous updates, whichever number we're at. Current state of the situation. Lot of topics, so let's just get started. If you all have seen the ammo restrictions legislation that they're pushing through, the amount of ammunition the government is buying. Just a thought, a reloading press and supplies most likely will not be regulated for quite a while, and it cuts your ammunition costs in half. Have you thought about that? For half the money you can have twice the bullets, powder, and gear, and if you have a press you can collect your brass and use it again. If there's an ammo restriction, while everybody scrambles to buy up all the available ammunition, it would definitely be time to buy up as much powder and bullets and primers as you can possibly lay your hands on. Just thought I'd mention it. Water, yeah. Somebody had a post. It was a 6-month-long prepping consideration thing, and I think that they based it on like an H1N5 flu. And it was an interesting scenario because it walked it down and pretty much said if an epidemic broke loose, and it kind of started walking you through some things. If I can manage to figure out how to post a link to a video, because I don't take the time to learn all this crap, I'm going to try to post it. But the takeaway was, if there was an epidemic, even if you could get to the food store, you run the risk of catching it. And if you wore a respirator and gloves and took precautions, you could bring the epidemic into the house, because people handled the food to get it onto the shelves for you to pick it up, to bring it home, etc., etc., etc. And then it went into a very interesting biological scenario with washing dishes. Hey, I've got a bowl, and I've got my plate, and I've got my coffee cup, and I can reuse them because, they're durable, and they're, I don't have to worry about anything. But you got to wash it. Everything needs to be washed, and that requires water. And if there's no water, and you're trying to deal with day-to-day stuff, and you have to find 5 gallons a day for wash water, just to keep the plates, because of the sanity. You got to keep things clean if you want to keep from getting sick. And they were talking about, how much water, and the fact that you would have to treat it with bleach. Anything that you use for food would have to absolutely be boiled, yada yada yada. And they're talking about the amount of gallons of water. And I kept thinking, if the public utility water shut off, good God, that's a lot of water. It's far more than I ever thought. And so I was thinking about it, and I think it even mentions in the article, paper plates was not on my prepping list. But the more I thought about it, if you go get 9,000 paper plates for $10, and you can go half a year without having to use dishwater, and then if you let them dry, they're burnable. That just seemed like a smart prepping tip. Just have, go to Sam's Club or Costco and pick up the paper plates in bulk and stash them. Save yourself several hundred, if not 1,000+ gallons of wash water, so that you have more water to do clothes, to bathe yourself, to cook with. I just thought that made an awful lot of sense, and I thought I'd mention it. God, I hate getting into this. Just some at the time of this, some updates. In case any of you figured out, it's around August 25th, 2012. Everything feels wrong. Ammunition, the government and everybody has ordered about 4.5 billion rounds of hollow point. Social Security Administration, Fish and Wildlife, Department of Homeland Security, the list goes on and on and on. We've all heard it. So in your entire lifetime, have you ever heard of all these internal state agencies suddenly all buying ammunition within the same 3-month time period? Doesn't give you a good feeling, does it? I was reading articles in the Tel Aviv Times talking about openly how Iran is going to get hit by Israel with an EMP blast. And they're going to shut the country down, and then they're going to go after that nuke plant and put an end to this. And two things were of interest in that report was simply that, well, since the U.S. has moved 4 aircraft carriers into the region, and the F-35 Joint Attack Strike aircrafts that have never left U.S. soil are suddenly deployed 400 miles from Iran, and now they're talking about an EMP blast, my guess is within 60 to 90 days, we're going to be involved in at least a war with 1, if not 2 countries. That's going to piss the Chinese and the Russians off, and it's going to get real interesting. And that's also going to shut down the Gulf of Hormuz, which means a third of the world's oil is going to stop flowing. A warship has already hit a tanker. This is why they won't flow. And they're not even in wartime. It's just the maritime activity is enough to cause a problem. I have heard that Taxageddon is coming January 1. Our Congress has not seen fit to have a budget for the United States for the last 3 years. No budget. We're in debt. We're about to fire up the war machine, which is intensely expensive. The economy's bad. So it looks like January 1, we're going to have a war with 2 countries. Taxes are going to go up astronomically. We are either going to have a new president or the same president. Either way, these conditions exist. I have heard in the last week from 5 different places the same thing. They're planning for the collapse of the dollar. And I found that real interesting, and at first I didn't think too much of it, but when the 5th time I seen the reference, somebody was pointing out a few things that were like, why do you think they're buying ammunition? Why do you think things feel wrong? Why do you think you're seeing all the militarization of the police? Why do you think all these departments are arming? Why do you think Social Security Administration has a need for bullets and a SWAT team? Why do you think all the things that have led us all up to something just ain't right? What are they planning for? It's obvious that they're planning for civil unrest. We've all heard it. If the dollar collapsed, now all of a sudden all those moves make sense. Is it practical? Let's see. We're carrying more debt load than anybody. We've conducted more wars than anybody. We don't even bother with a budget for 3 years. We have been spending money as if it was free. We've been giving it out. $840 billion here, $2.2 trillion there, conducting wars, running the war machine. I mean, growing the government, growing all these agencies, spending this money left and right like there's no accounting for it. Don't have to worry about it. Pissed away all that money on all those companies that went belly up. Nobody cares. They want a one world currency. Most of Europe is in economic trouble. Spain is in economic trouble. Everybody is having economic trouble all at the same time. Coincidence? Something to think about. I would strongly recommend that everybody go to the Argentina blog. If you don't know what it is, Google it. Argentina went through an economic collapse, and I would start paying attention to everything that you can find on that blog, because it is looking pretty much like my running guess is that the dollar is probably in trouble because the children have mismanaged everything. We've seen inflation. We've seen all the stuff that they're doing. They're talking about Q3 quantitative easing. We're just going to pump more money and then print more money. And this is what Zimbabwe did. Something's wrong. Pay attention at least to the economic collapse thoughts and what's going to go on. And I'll give you an example. If the dollar collapses, what happens to the banks? Do they shut their doors? If they shut their doors, then how do we cash checks? How do we make withdrawals? If they shut their doors and the dollar's down and everything stops, what happens with us paying our mortgage? Do we all foreclose on our houses? What do the businesses do? If the dollar is just crumpled, what does a company like HP or Apple do when the dollar collapses? What are the Waltons going to do? Are everybody going to shut their doors and send their employees home? Can't pay you because there's no functional currency? I don't know. And that's a scary thought to me. Do you? Do you know the progression of an economic collapse within a country the size of the United States, and the movements that the government, the agencies, and the corporations are going to do, and what the banks are going to do, and how the mortgages and the debt load of your car loan and everything? If you have no money, how can you pay it? If you can't pay it, are they going to come in and repossess everything and steal 75% of the property in the United States? Would that housing bubble have been the test run? One other thought. I was talking to somebody whose dad worked in the World Bank, and it was mentioned that you might want to add The Economist to your list of daily things to check through to kind of get a feel for which way the wind's blowing. Other than that, I'm going to leave it there. Form your own opinions, think your own thoughts. I don't care. These are the things. I will add one more little note. In case you all haven't noticed, last year we had a drought and we cooked here in the U.S. We didn't have corn crop, pretty much we didn't have hay, and that caused a lot of problems. And then this year, we didn't have hay. We burned up the crops. You all know about it. Well, they started slaughtering all the livestock. If you can't feed it, it's better put it on the market, and then instead of having your cows starve to death and die and lose all your investment. Well, as a result, guess what? Beef, chicken, and pork, they're saying, might be absolutely out of reach of most people, because beef might be at $12 to $18 a pound. 2 years of drought back to back with the corn crop and the hay all getting crumpled. What do you think these animals eat? I just got done picking up about another 60 pounds, all for under $5 a pound, pork for $2.50 a pound, and I've been vacuum sealing and freezing until I've got no more space left, just in case. Because if there's no way to find chicken, beef, or food, the primary components of food, without it costing me 4 times as much because the crops all burned up, I'm going to be eating steak, chicken, and pork at the old prices while everybody else is paying for the new prices. I hedged my bet. I'm going to look into silver and gold too, but just a couple of things to think about. The next 90 to 120 days is going to be the most interesting probably I can remember in the last 20 years. Pay attention, folks. Thanks for listening.